Hey guys, welcome adventurers. Cressup here with another episode of Indies in Depth, the series where we take a behind the scenes look at the indie game industry with the people who work in it. And today I'm going to be speaking to Paul Korman, who has made the adventure game, the point and click adventure game, The Phantom Fellows. He's also part of the Classic Gamers Guild podcast, where they discuss retro games, retro adventure games, and he also talks about making his game on that as well. It was lovely to chat to him, as he's also part of the Adventure Game Hotspot Content Creators Network, so it was nice to finally meet him and just find out a little bit about how he went about making the game as a brand new indie game developer. So it was lovely to chat to him. As always, I'll put all the links to his podcast, the game, down below. Do give this video a like and subscribe. As always, I stream on Twitch pretty much a couple of days a week, so check that out too. I play lots of adventure games and indie games, and let's get into the interview. Paul, hello. Thank you so much for joining me. It's lovely to meet you. How are you doing? It's great to have you on here.
Super good. Thank you for having me on. And I've been watching your interviews and enjoying them, and now I'm on the other side of the camera. So
Yes.
that's really cool.
Because I should explain. Obviously, you are a game developer. You've made the Phantom Fellows, but you're also, as you say, from the other side, you also have your own podcast, the Classic Gamers Guild, where you talk about classic games, classic adventure games. So we could talk a little bit about that, but I'm really interested to hear mostly about the Phantom Fellows and kind of what it was like, that journey as an indie developer, because it was your very first game, wasn't it, that you made, and you just took the leap and went for it.
Yes, as ill-advisable as it was. Yeah.
So obviously let's get into the Phantom Fellows first, and just tell me a little bit about what the game's about.
Phantom Fellows is about two best friends who start a paranormal investigation business together because one of them's already dead. So that's the hook. That's the elevator portion of the situation. But otherwise, it's point and click. It has a lot of Sierra influence, a lot of like exploration and hotspots and like an open map to travel around, but hopefully none of the, Sierra things that hopefully it's like a LucasArts Sierra love child, but the best of both genetics.
In terms of deciding to make it a comedy, where did that come from? Because it's quite difficult with games, isn't it? Like, it could be very hit and miss with comedy. But was that just something you just naturally were like, oh yeah, I want to crack jokes and I want to, write like that?
Yeah, exactly. It was always going to be primarily a comedy, just I guess my personality in general and um yeah, the way of I think I'm typical in the sense of like you hear a lot of like stand-up people and the jokey types have some sort of like tragedy or traumas in the past, and like they use comedy to deal with that, and that's I'm pretty just cut from that cloth exactly. Like for me specifically, without getting into it because it's a downer, but I'd lost my dad when I was young in an airplane accident, and I just remember having this moment like in the wake of that whole situation of being like everything's kind of falling apart. I ended up like in Los Angeles, like completely on my own at 15 years old. Like, how do we life? Like, what are we gonna do? And so it was either like collapse under the weight of it or just start laughing at the absurdity. And thankfully, I chose the laughy, jokey route. So it's just like deeply ingrained in me as far as humor is concerned. So I wanted to make it a comedy, but I also um, wanted to, have some sort of heart in it. Like I wanted an
Sure.
element of
Yeah.
the game, like and I think thinking about this for my son too. I'm like, if he plays this game, it would be really cool if he could actually like get some of like my favorite life lessons from this game. So having a ghost and a breather, as I call the alive one,
Right. Yeah.
um, it works. Right? It's so hard to be. I always wanted to say like the human, but like they're both humans, just one's dead. So anyway, the breather and then the ghost. The ghost is naturally a bit of a mentor to the breather. I mean, there's most of the game. There's like this kind of ball breaky, brotherly sort of vibe.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when things get serious, when it gets real, like the ghost steps up as a bit of a mentor. And the breather in the game's name is Oliver, and Oliver implies that he lost his parents young too, because that helps me write. Basically, Oliver's me is a poorly kept secret, which is one of the best decisions I made too, as far as being a new writer. Is like just write yourself in the character because you know
Sure.
what you're gonna do in every
Right. Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
Um, So anyway, yeah, having the ghost be a bit of a mentor to Oliver too allowed me to put some kind of like philosophy. I really like psychology and philosophy, so to kind of just sneak it in there, almost like edutainment used to do, just kind of sneak in these little musings, and then hopefully one day my son will play it and get something out of it, or everybody else can too. That'd be cool.
So I was going to ask you that. Yeah, how much of it has your son seen? I'm guessing maybe it's a little bit too, I don't know, edgy for him yet, or how old is he now, or how much has he seen?
Right. He's 10 now.
Yeah.
We have like these two stations. So I guess my desk is behind me, and then I'm looking at his desk. So we basically are like battleships.
Oh.
And so he's over here with like Minecraft and Roblox, and I'm over here making the game. So he's always checking in on what I'm doing, and honestly, I grab him a lot, like, "Hey, is this funny?" And he's like, "I guess." Or I'm like, "Hey, does this look cool?" And things like that. He's much kinder with the art compliments, less stingy. So he's a big part of it, and honestly, some of the best lines in the game came from him because he has just a bizarre way of seeing the world sometimes. Like a quick example, one of the lines at the very end of the game came from him. We were walking out of the movies, and he was a little teary-eyed from an emotional conclusion to the movie, as we both get. Like embarrassingly easy, at least on my end. I'm like, really? This is doing it to me? Are you serious? It's like
Oh yeah,
Diary
I've
of a
been
Wimpy
there.
Kid.
Don't worry. Like, why am I
So we were
crying
walking
at
out.
this? Yeah.
Right. We were walking out, and he was just like, "Great, now my eyes are sweating," and I was like, "Oh, that's really good. Like these good little strange perspectives on things." And so there's a bunch of lines in the game that are honestly just stolen from him, which is fun. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cute though, and in terms of kind of the finished product, to see he got to see a fair amount of that as well. I guess as you say, because you're always like with each other. He must have seen quite a lot of it, and I'm guessing he approves.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's very proud of it. Like he tells everybody that we have a game and that it just came out like at the most inappropriate of times. People
Oh.
that just do not care, like we're like checking out at the store and they're like, "That's great, kid." But yeah, he likes to champion it to everybody he can, and yeah, he's super proud of it.
Now it's worth saying because you mentioned the two characters there. I feel like you put your, as this being your first game, you put you made the work hard for you because you've got the two characters which you can switch between, but there's also multiple solutions, isn't there, to all the different kind of scenes and how you do things. What made you decide to do that? Because that's a lot of extra work, I imagine.
Right. Yeah. It's yeah.
You're like,
It's like.
yes, yes, it is.
Goodness, yeah, because I think a lot of people thought when I said it took 4 years, they'd be like, "Oh, so you work on it like when you get home?" I'm like, no, it was full time.
Yeah.
It literally just took 4 years. In hindsight, maybe it would have been three if I knew how to program, because I was just so bad at it. I spent so much time fixing my own nonsense. But yes, the multiple puzzle solution. I guess I kind of like I made this game with like a wish list. Because
Okay.
I'm just a huge fan of adventure games, right? Like with the podcast that I've been doing with Anna for 6 or 7 years now, I just really love adventure games, and we talk about them all the time on the show. And we used to have a lot of indie devs on and stuff like that to
Yeah.
support them. A little less since development, since I went into development of this game. But regardless, it helped me kind of dissecting these games every other week with Anna. Helped me come up with like this wish list of things that I want I want that for me. Like I want that in my
Yeah.
game. That would be so cool if I could. So yeah, basically I just compiled a bunch of things that I wanted for my game and checked them off the list.
And in terms of, I mean, obviously you talk about this a lot on your podcast itself, but when you say you kind of had a checklist or games that you were sort of looking at, what kind of ones were you looking at? Like, yeah, I definitely want this, or this would be great to have. What sort of
Right.
inspirations did you have?
Goodness. Definitely. I mean, generic answer would be Sierra and LucasArts, like of
Sure.
course. Okay. I guess if I was looking at it checklist wise, but before I had like a story to tell, like you hear some people are like, I have a story to tell. And like I
Hmm.
was not that person. I was like, I just want to make I want to make a game that adventure gamers would really like. So on my little wish list, the first thing I thought of before I knew like let's say that there would be a ghost in the game,
Yeah.
like what led to that. Sorry, I'm eventually stumbling my way towards a point here, maybe. Was I really like when games have multiple player characters and they have, contrasting abilities. So like a ghost and a human. Um, but I'm not. Sometimes when there's too many player characters, it's like a little overwhelming because
Yeah,
you don't
yeah.
know what to do with who when. So I was like, let's just do two, and they'll have different abilities. And so that led me to be like, well, what are their two abilities? And I was like, one of them will be dead. So that's that's kind of the mind work as far as getting, but getting arriving at the Phantom Fellows, which was supposed to be a placeholder name. I
Oh,
really
was
should have circled
it? Oh,
back
I
to
didn't
that.
know
Yeah.
that.
I took notes that was like I just wrote down two things. It was Ghost Guy PI, which yikes. And then Phantom Fellows, which is just slightly less yikes, and I just never circled back to it. And at some point, I like did the little font logo, and I was like, "That was a lot of work. We'll just go with,
Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
just keep this name." But yeah, so that was kind of the first thing on the checklist. Another example, I guess you could say, of this checklist would be traveling. So like when I played Police Quest growing up, you could like drive all around Lytton and like you could stop wherever you wanted to stop. And same could be said with like Space Quest 4, like going through the mall. Even Fate of Atlantis, more on a globe-trotting
Yeah, yeah.
perspective. But just having this like freedom where I don't know, as a kid, some of these games felt like massive open world games,
Yeah.
especially back in the day. Like, Police Quest is a good example because it ties into Phantom Fells as far as like using a car and grounded in like a real city
Yeah.
or place or whatever. But in Lytton, you could like go to the diner and just like see what's up with Carol in the diner, and you could go to the courthouse, go to the police station, go to the park. And it just, I remember as a kid, as I'm sure you can relate to too, it's like we were stuck with any particular game for like months.
Yes.
So it was like, you're just really playing it like it was a sandbox in a sense. So I wanted to try to capture that a little bit. So I came up with an idea where, not an original one necessarily, but I framed it as starting in day 3. And apologies, quick context: the game is 7 days. Each day is a
Yes.
case. So starting in day 3, which is the third case, a map opens up and you can go back to previous locations. And miraculously, this is going to accidentally cover your initial question about multiple puzzle solutions. It's wild that that worked out. But this traveling back will be a source of alternate puzzle solutions. Because another thing I wanted for the game was like, have you ever played an adventure game where ah, like the game needs you to do something and it involves an object and you're like, I saw that earlier. Like
Yes.
like I need a screwdriver for this puzzle and I saw one earlier, so maybe I could just go get that. And they're always like, no, you need to use bubble gum and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
whatever
you're
else.
like, but why wouldn't I just, yeah.
Right, right. Why wouldn't I just go get the thing? I
Yeah,
saw it on my desk. So it tries to kind of reconcile that. So it's like if you saw something earlier in the game that'll help you now, go get it, and it should work. And then if there's nothing to get, or no alternate puzzle solution, or you just don't see it or don't want it or whatever, then there's at least like fresh bits, fresh interactions, fresh jokes, um, rewarding your exploration. So if you took the time to leave your current case and go travel around town, stop at the diner,
sure.
you'll at least get like some new jokes, and a lot of them turn into like running gags. Where if you go back to the diner every day or back to the first house every day, there's there's it's always so satisfying when the game knows that you've been there before, sort of thing, and it builds
Yeah,
on
for
itself.
sure. And you're
Yeah,
like, hey, this, it feels like you're kind of interacting with something a bit more kind of fresh rather than just, this is exactly what the developer wanted. And it's like kind of there's new interactions, like you say. Yeah.
yeah.
I confess I'm halfway through the game, but I'm enjoying that
Okay.
kind of element of like going back and forth and sort of like chatting to, like you say, people start to recognize you and start to like talk to you and stuff. I don't. Yeah, actually, that reminds me of. I don't know if you ever played Dreams in the Witch House. But that, which is very different in the sense that it's actually, well, it's Lovecraftian, so it's kind of got a bit of a supernatural thing, but it's a bit more RPG like, but it's still got that same sense of you go about a town and you're always like, oh, if I go here, what's going to happen now?
Oh, cool.
So it reminded me quite a bit of that, in that sense. I mean, you're talking about the coding there, and again, another mammoth task to take up on your own. How did you go about learning? Was it just tutorials? Were you chatting to people, or just how do you start with that?
Right. Unclear. I don't know. A lot of
You
minor
must know
panic
now,
attacks for
Paul.
sure.
The game
That's
is
fair.
out.
Okay. That's fair. Although sometimes I look through the script and I'm just like, how did I
Yeah,
like, for
yeah. What
example,
did I
there's a
do?
Yeah, exactly. There's like a number pad later in the game, and I already know now because I want one for the next game. I'm like, I already don't know how I did that at all. Like, at least I can go copy paste myself, but
Right. Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
feels like a different Paul, like a past Paul. I'm like, oh, good for him. He worked that out. That's crazy. I don't know how he did it. Um, but yeah, okay. So what really helped me because I was flirting with like Adventure Maker or something, the Unity one, and I was flirting with Visionaire. I was flirting with all the ones that had a GUI, like a user interface, because AGS is a little scary looking in that regard. It's just like,
Yeah.
C sharp, like just, a blinking cursor and brackets and weird things we don't normally use on our keyboard. And but I saw a video from our friend Trolls from Space Quest
Yes.
Historian. He did like an AGS tutorial. Um, and Trolls and I think we have a similar vibe. We both I think come from more like the artsy side than the
Sure.
mathematical side.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thank you for getting that.
I get
I
what you
had
know.
nothing
I
else if
totally
you
get what you
didn't.
mean there,
Okay,
because I would. Oh, I mean, I don't think I'm either of them, but I'm definitely slightly more artsy than mathsy anyway. So I would. Yeah, I get
right.
what you mean there. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So seeing trolls just explain it calmly and be like, hey, like I can do this, you can do this sort of vibe. And I was like, okay, if trolls is like me, if he can do it, I can do it. I always stumble when I say that because I can sound so mean if I don't word it carefully. Like if he
No,
can do
no,
it, I can do
no. I get what you mean.
it.
Yeah.
Thank
Don't
you.
worry.
So that really helped, and to this day, I still give Trolls a lot of credit for this game. It even extends beyond that because he played the demo when I wasn't sure if I was gonna really do this or not, and his
Mm,
reception to the demo was like a crucial moment. And hearing him like heartily laugh at a few things and like really seem to enjoy himself, I'm like, okay, it was like a turning point. Like we're doing this. But anyway, yeah, it was just one frustrating thing after another, and a good amount of like ADD, OCD that worked to my advantage. Like I have that kind of trait where it's like you just can't sleep until the thing is right. Like it would just irk me to death if something wasn't working, if the game
right.
wouldn't compile. And I think you arguably maybe need some of that if you're gonna do this on your own. Like
Yeah.
enough of that, because I don't think I'm determined. I think it's just determination comes from
Mm,
this weird obstinance to make sure to get it right or to see it okay before you sleep or whatever. Um, but yeah, it was a lot of panic attacks, a lot of like I didn't know what bugs were. I didn't know that bugs were just human mistakes. Um,
right.
that was something like I feel gaslit by the whole technology community as leading up to this moment. I'm like, wait, so a bug? I thought they were like this mystifying,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh, we
yeah.
don't know. They just, yeah, they
Where did
just
they go
appear out
from?
of
Yeah.
right. But it's just, yeah, it's a neat way of sweeping under the rug. Like, yeah, we messed something up somewhere. Could
Yeah.
be a typo, could be bad logic, who
Yeah.
knows? And you can't run from it, and you can't like dump it on somebody's lap. Like there were times where I wanted to go to the AGS community and be like, fix it. I don't know what I did wrong, and I don't know where I did it wrong. But you can't even really do that because it's like your own weird logic is what comes up with the
Yeah.
problems, and it's just very like if I don't fix it, nobody else can, and that would create this like I don't know.
Ooh.
I'm a little maybe argue. Thank you. The oof is cathartic to hear.
Yeah.
Thanks. I'm maybe a little too like almost emotional for programming because I get
Mm.
too emotionally like tied up in every little thing. But alas, it makes me feel alive, I guess.
Oh, good. That's good. I'm glad to glad to positives. So it was all through. Was it all through AGS? You made it then?
Yeah, all
Oh,
through
awesome.
AGS, and I always loved it. Like I was a fan of AGS, as
Yeah.
weird as that might sound. Like I just used to always go like once a month. I'd check in on the community and see what like the top downloaded games were, and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I would always like hoard them. Like I'd rarely play much less all of them, but like a few of them here and there. But I would just hoard them, like, oh, good, I have them for when I want them. And yeah, just love the community and the vibe, and I love pixel art. So yeah, AGS it had to be.
And in terms, you were sort of talking there a little bit about, being a bit unsure, and it must be really hard when it's you, kind of, it's your own personal project and you are doing it. And was that quite difficult those first few times showing it to people, and what made you just could continue onwards and keep going?
Right. Yeah, the public's judgment is terrifying.
Yeah.
It's still scary. Like I don't like to check my reviews or anything like that. I just get a glance. I'm like, okay, it still seems mostly green.
Yeah.
Everyone seems pretty happy. The occasional nomination or little award, I'm like, okay, there's enough people like it
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I'm not for everyone, so I don't expect the game to be for everyone. Like that's fair.
Yeah.
But as long as as long as it hits the 60-40 or 40-60, I'm happy. Um, but yeah, no, it's really hard. But like you said, it like when you first start making it, you make the demo, and like everything's just in my head. I'm like, this could be just chaos for anybody
Mm-hmm.
else. Like it could either be garbage, it could be chaos, it could be all kinds of negative things. But seeing Trolls play it on his stream, he did a video on the demo many years ago that was kind of came from that. That was kind of all I needed. I'm like, okay, this is
Yeah.
because I always knew. I guess there's some truth to like I'm not for everyone. Like this the game is for like the me's and the trolls is out there to an extent. Hopefully not so limited,
No,
but
no,
yeah, it's like
no.
if trolls likes it, others will like it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I get that. I totally get that. Was there any point where where you were thinking, do I need to get like extra people in on this, or was it always like, I'm gonna make this is it is might take a while, but I'm gonna learn these things, and this is gonna be my project.
Right. Great question. For a little bit, there was a friend of mine, Highbury Hazard is his Twitch name.
Oh, cool. I'll check
Um,
them out.
he was he came in on I'm trying to think of the time frame. Basically, I could sum it up by saying he worked with me on day 3 of the game, but for personal reasons and things like that, he wasn't
Sure.
able to continue. And in that aspect, he was just helping. He was co-writing, so he was handling like the overarching part of the story and the ghost Engelbert's dialogue. Um, but he had to move on. And handle personal stuff. So I ended up having to go back and kind of rewrite day 3 because his version of Engelbert wasn't mine because
Yeah,
it, it,
which I was just gonna
it-
say, which must be difficult because you know, maybe it's easier in a way to do it on your own when you've got the sort of vision and the clarity. Maybe I don't know.
no, that yes, that's a huge part of it exactly. And the other part too is like he wrote Engelbert as quite a lot more cynical and a lot more like kind of ball breaky, which I wish I had a more eloquent term for that. I'm
No,
sorry.
no, but yeah.
Um, ribbying I don't know. But it was hard to. Sorry, I'm gonna have to do it again. It was hard to like break my own balls to
Yeah,
sit
yeah.
there and like just have Engelbert and Oliver like two toy figurines like going at each other all the time. It was more natural for me and him to be like that because that was already our dynamic.
Yeah.
Um, he was originally on the podcast that I do too. I should mention.
Oh, right.
Um,
Okay.
back when it was the three of us. Yeah, when there was two dudes, he was the other dude.
Right.
Um,
Okay. Okay. Okay.
yeah. So yeah, day 3 I went back and like played it all, and day 3 just like stood out as like Engelbert was just a lot meaner, just a lot like more weathered and rugged and sick of it all. Just I guess more cynical than the way I would go on to write him. So yeah, that all had to be undone.
Yeah.
But to the spirit of your original question, I really did want to keep as much of it to just me as possible. Um, I don't know why. I mean, I do know why. I guess
Why not?
to challenge myself. Yeah, there you go. That's more or less exactly it. Yeah, to
Yeah.
challenge myself to see if I could do it. And then once I saw myself doing it, I'm like, see it through, and it'll be cool to again turn to my kid and be like, hey, look at this thing I did. You made a macaroni necklace. I made a game.
um, and art wise, I know because you said you're an artist already. So was that relatively easy picking that side of it up, or were there any kind of challenges there?
Yeah, that was difficult. I chose the ultra low resolution pixart
Yeah.
in part thinking that it might be easier. Like it might be a bit of a handicap and like a I don't know, like a life hack. Like I can
Sure.
skirt by doing super but that ends up just having its own challenges in a sense. Um like there's only so many ways to draw things in a clear like they'll be readable to
Yes.
whoever like to make it read to the people. And anyway, so but yeah, the art was challenging. I was really inspired by Dark Side Detective and the
Yes.
perspective that they did. So they were like the first ones, and I think as of right now I'm like I'm the first to have continued it. They're the pioneers of this perspective, which is I guess almost like a side scroller kind of platformer perspective,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, where you don't see the top of anything. You only see the face of it and the side.
Yes.
And no other adventure game is like that. And so when I saw that, I was like, it's just really cool. Like the street is just like a line. You don't see like the yellow stripes on the street, for example. Um, so anyway, yeah. Once I settled on doing that perspective, I kind of, then I started having my little vision, and first thing I did at that point was I reached out to Paul Conway, the artist of Darkseid, and
Yes.
sought his blessing, let's say, well, literally, and ended up staying in contact with him almost throughout all of development
That
except for
was
the
cool.
last year. Yeah, it was really cool. We stayed in contact from like 2021 to 2023, and I would send him work, and I basically studied Paul. Um, that's
His
it's
art
a
or
weird
his.
sentence, right? Yeah,
Like,
let's leave it
Paul.
vague and open. I don't
Yeah.
know. um, yeah, I basically it's almost like how a guitarist might study like Van Halen,
Sure. Okay.
in a sense where I think I've naturally carried traces of what I learned from him into what I was doing, because
Yes.
he indirectly taught me how to do pixel art. I'd be like, oh, so that's how you draw a dog, or that's how you draw a bottle of ketchup,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and then from there, you start to develop your own style, and I would send him things, and he would give me tips on how to differentiate myself from him, which was needed and difficult. I had a bit of a breakthrough one day when I was looking out the window, and I was like, I live in Colorado because I wanted to move here because I think it's beautiful. So let's make the game in Colorado. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, it was so simple, but it like blew my mind. I'm like, this is the way forward. Now,
Yeah.
when I need a tree, I just do an evergreen. Like I suddenly had all the direction I needed to really branch out on my own. And I always like lighting effects. Darkseid does them a little bit. Thimbleweed Park does them a little bit more. I adore Thimbleweed Park so much. One
Yes.
of
I
my
can see
favorite
the
games of
sign
all
in the
time.
back and everything.
Right. Love that game so much. And every time I would do the lighting in my game, I would restrain myself. Kind
Mm,
of like as adults, like when we have like access to like a bunch of candy, you're like, I should probably take it easy.
right. Yeah.
And I was doing that to myself with the lighting. And one day I was just like, just cut yourself free, man. Just have
Yeah.
fun. If you want to overdo the lighting and like just drown it in crazy lighting effects, then maybe that's even more differentiation and more, this is your style and how you do things. So anyway, I eventually leaned into that as well.
Yeah.
And out of it is slowly coming, my own vibe or whatever.
Yeah, because I think it must be difficult when you are starting out, and like you say, there's a vibe that you're like, I really like this vibe and I want to kind of do this, but then to try and make it your own, because I know you had like a bit of criticism from people being like, but wait a minute, isn't that just Dark Side Detective? Or wait a minute, isn't that like the same like object or whatever? But like, I mean, I guess what do you say to those people who, like, some people are a bit like, hang on a minute, this kind of looks really similar.
Right, right. Great question. It's difficult in a sense because on one hand, I get it. I especially me before I was so deep into like, I think, for example, it's easy to, once you kind of unlock the notion of, okay, it's in the same resolution,
Yeah.
and Phantom Pulse is using the same perspective. um once you see that, it opens up this new perspective of like, okay, maybe that's why certain, like, lampposts or bar stool look so similar, because there's just only so many ways to draw it in that resolution, I guess you'd say. It's like, uh it's almost like two guitarists playing the same chord. One isn't necessarily stealing from the other.
Yes.
It's more just an inherent limitation of the medium itself.
Sure. Sure. Sure.
Um,
Sure.
but on my end, it's kind of my duty to differentiate as much as I possibly can. Like that, it's not like a free pass to not be mindful and respectful, let's say. And I also want to I don't want to imitate. I want to branch off of and be like, this is
You want
my.
people, I guess, to see it as, kind of your own thing and your own vibe as well, I guess. Like, that yeah.
Right. Right, exactly. And I think, to a degree, it depends on the perspective. Like, if you sit back and look at the rooms, I do think mine look a lot different than Darkseid's. Um, for a lot in part for the lighting, and just I try to do a little bit more like 3D kind of gradients and things like that on things. But I also have to remember, like, to the untrained eye or to people that aren't obsessed with pixel art specifically, like, they're not gonna see that. They're just gonna see the same perspective, big chunky pixels, etc., etc. So I understand that. I guess I would say to them is, my game has over 20,000 sprites in it. So if a handful of sprites came out looking like anything in the Dark Side Detective, then to fixate on those small sprites would be to miss the forest for the trees, in a
Sure.
sense. Like, I would also suggest, like, if I'm capable of drawing these rooms or these scenes that are I would say unarguably different than the dark side scenes.
Yeah,
Why would I need to take or steal, three of their assets? Like it just there's a logic there that doesn't track necessarily. It's like, oh, he could draw 150 inventory items and 82 rooms and 39 characters and 20,000 sprites. Well, he could draw 19,995 sprites, but he stole five of them. Like,
sure.
why would I risk? It's very important to me that this game is like, not legacy is such a self-involved word, but it's important to me that this game is pristine and pure and
Yeah.
of good intention. And that's why I reached out to Paul. Like I was under no obligation to reach out to him and seek his blessing and to share art with him and things like that. But it was important to me that he be excited about it, that he feel, honored and things like that. And regardless of how anything turns out, my intentions have always been clear. And basically, I guess at the end of the day, to anybody who has these criticisms, I would just say there's 20,000 sprites. If 1 to 5 of them looks like something in Dark Side, that is a probably statistical probability based on the restraints of the resolution of pixel art being in the same perspective than it would be anything else.
I'm also interested to know in terms of you. Obviously, the game, the game's obviously out, and in that sense, what that process has been like since it's been out, and maybe dealing with some of that kind of side of things, but in general, dealing with just producing a game, and what do you kind of do after that?
Right. Goodness, it's absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
Releasing a game is so scary. I'm not. I've disappointed myself. I thought I was more courageous, let's say, than it turns out I was after releasing the game because I wanted to just like hermit up and not hear anything. Luckily, everything as far as what we just spoke of has all been fine. Virtually non-existent. Let's say that was kind of more just like a drama that popped up last year, almost exactly this time last year, and since it's gone quiet and stayed quiet, which is nice. So to the rest of it, yeah, it's really scary. The public's judgment is terrifying. Some of the reviews, most of the reviews have been really good. Like Adventure Gamers gave it 4.5 out of 5, and
Yeah.
Hotspot gave it 4, and I got a big shiny award behind me from NYX that gave it best indie PC adventure game. And some really good reviews that were great for the self-esteem. And then obviously there's a few negative reviews, mostly just users on Steam, like 1 or 2 I think negatives on there, and they're hard, man. It's like
Yeah.
it goes to show like how unsatisfied we are as humans because like I can read 25 like glowing positive reviews, like 2 or 3 of them are like 1,000-word essays on how much they like the game, and then just like the one negative one is the one I'll go pout and kick stones about for 3 days instead of
Yeah.
thinking of the positive one. It's so frustrating. Like, I get so mad at myself. Like, why can't you just take the 20 good? Why are you focusing on the one bad? And you said that you're not for everyone, but you're not acting like you know that right now.
Right. I know.
Um,
Yeah. It's
so yeah,
yeah,
it's
especially when
challenging.
it's you and it's your project. Like at least I guess if you were in a big team, you could be like, well, we all kind of had our hand in it, but
Right. Oh, it's such a good point. Exactly. Because it's like yes, thank you. Because the critiques feel really personal because
mm,
they are. And
yeah,
especially when I'm like, Oliver is essentially me, the main character. And one of the reviews was like, it was a positive review, but he's like, I like the game. He's like, the main character's a little insufferable at times. And I'm like, ow.
you're like, oh,
He is me. Like if you found him insufferable, you would definitely find me insufferable. And I guess fair enough, but I had to. You made me just read it with no warning, no sugar on top. So
but I
things like
think
that are difficult.
the most important thing is, are you happy with the game?
Yes,
Good.
I am. Yes, good question. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm really, really happy, but really proud of it. Um, yeah, I'm excited about it. Like every line in that game, like my bar, I guess you'd say, was something I took from. That's not true. Something Anna told me that she had heard from Mel Brooks. Credit where credit's due. That Mel Brooks was like, I don't put any dialogue in my movies that doesn't make me laugh.
Yeah.
And essentially that's exactly what I did. Where and God, there's I think there's like 18,000 lines of dialogue in my game. It's a big game too for those listening. It's like 16 hours minimum,
Yeah.
23-ish hours if you want to see everything as both characters. So both characters can like look and interact at absolutely everything in the game, and get unique lines, and like none of them are like throwaway generic lines. Like you're never gonna click on a flower and he'll be like, "That's a red flower."
Mm.
Like it's always gonna try,
Yeah.
try to either make you laugh or maybe have some sort of obscure kind of cool fact, which is what I fell back on when I had nothing as far as humor. I'd be like, "Yeah, give him a cool fact."
You're like, oh, just a fact this time.
Yeah, have a fun fact. Why not? um, and then there's random things you can do, like you can if you think to you can click talk on a star and you'll actually like wish upon a star. And of course, if you can do that in one room as one character, you have to do it as both characters. And if you
Yeah.
can do it in one room, then you should be able to do it in all the rooms and all the stars, not in the individual stars, but each room's stars should have a different response. So it's a ton of heart as far as that's concerned. So for those of us, especially on like the Sierra side of games growing up, who loved, especially in the parsers, like typing things in to see if the dev thought about it, like this game's
Yeah.
for you. The heart of this game is walking around and exploring it. And a lot of times it's like almost in our human nature to like win the thing, to get to the end, to solve the puzzle. But an adventure is kind of everything but the destination,
Mm.
right? Like an adventure is kind of all the awesome stuff that happens as you stumble your way to that final point. Um, so if you can resist trying to just win the game and just really saunter and stroll and look at all the interactions, like I tried to reward every single interaction. Like every sense of exploration should be rewarded in the game, hopefully.
Yeah, so far I think you've hit the nail on the head with that for sure. Like, and
Thank you.
it is lovely that, like you said, the amount of sort of thought that's gone into all these different pieces on it. I thought we'd finish this up just, and we don't have to go into loads of detail with all of these, but just, I mean, I don't know if you do get much time to play many games, do you? Because I was going to say we could talk a little bit quickly about any games we're looking forward to later this year. But yeah, do you get a chance to play many games?
Right. Yes, it's been a
Has
casualty
it
of
been
development
hard?
for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, it's so sad in a sense too. I yeah, haven't had a chance to play many games. I've done some beta testing, which is cool because
Cool.
that's like an excuse, I guess. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not ignoring my game. I'm helping a friend, and so
Yeah.
that's been a way to do it. And the podcast helps me, though it is mostly classic games because there's still just a bunch of them I miraculously haven't played. Like I still haven't
Oh,
played
I
Grim
mean,
Fandango,
same
for
for
example.
sure. There's
Right,
loads
right,
I haven't played. I'm like, oh, I'm a
yeah,
fraud. But yeah.
right, right. Right, I just had that moment. Me and my kid were on tier list. Somebody out there put together a Sierra LucasArts tier list thing, and I just had this giant chunk in the I don't know category. I was like, oh my god,
Yeah.
this is really sad. I need to go out. I'd like go and play Grim Fandango, Monkey Island 3, but yeah. So I haven't played too many modern games. But I still buy them,
Yeah.
and that's half support, half one day I'll probably maybe get there. So yeah,
Yeah.
I got three. I could definitely do
Oh
three
yeah,
for the
go for it.
segment.
Yeah, go for it. Let me know what
Okay.
I'll see if hopefully I've heard of them. They might even be on my list. Let's see.
Okay. Okay. First one. The most likely, I guess, to be on your list, perhaps it would be Old Skies.
Yes, the
Um,
Watch It Eye. Yeah,
Super excited. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Love Dave. Love Why Jedi. I think I've played all their games. I still have to play Shard Day, but I played all the other ones. And yeah, just I adore the man and his company and all of his games. They're just amazing. So I'm really excited about that. And the other one would be mm, Neon Heart City by Cosmic Void.
Ooh,
Um,
yes. Who just puts out so many games every year? It's
because it's incredible.
so prolific and so talented as well.
Yes, he was. His art is phenomenal. Like his
Yeah,
color palettes, like they almost look like edible. They're so good. Like his brown is like chocolate. It just like so good. I remember he was one of the beta testers for my game, and
oh cool.
in the time it took me to like organize the beta testing, put together the Discord, have him beta test it, and then conclude, he made a game.
Yeah, yeah. And that's not
Literally.
even. It sounds like Paul is over exaggerating that. That is Cosmic White.
Yeah, exactly. He made Devil's Hideout in that time, and it was a
Oh,
great. I beta
great
tested it. It
game.
was super fun.
Yeah,
But yeah, so I'm looking forward to Neon Heart City because I love me some cyberpunk. So
yeah.
so there's that one, and then Tom's game, Air of the Dog.
Ah, yes, which is cool because that I remember I played. It was in a game jam for Adventure X.
Oh,
It was like
cool.
a very a different version of it, but like kind of
Okay.
the beginnings of it. And I think he entered it. I think it must have been 2020. He did like Adventure X because there was a game jam rather than a physical thing because of COVID, and he just made this little game jam for it called Air of the Dog, and I was like, this is amazing. Like for someone who's not made a game, or he had made little bits but nothing that big. I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. So I'm really glad with that one that he is actually make it, because obviously he did Lucid Dreaming first, didn't he? And then
Right. Yeah, the concept for Air of the Dog is one of those concepts when you hear it, you're like, ah, damn,
of
that's a
course,
great
yeah,
idea.
like
Like, I
damn
wish I
it.
thought of that. It's such a cool idea.
Well,
Yeah.
it's got the switching characters and things as well, hasn't it?
Right.
But obviously it's the same guy. But yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Okay, so what do you got?
Okay, so
I'm
I
curious.
thought I'd think of some that are you might like the idea of, just because of there's some similarities, or there's some similarities to yours. So I don't know if you know of Elroy and the Aliens, if you've heard of that
Ooh.
one. And I thought you might be interested in this because, and this is coming out in April as well. And this is one I saw when I was at Gamescom, and it's by some developers called Motivity. I think they're called Motivity. I might have probably said that wrong. I even met them, so I should know. So, and it's basically it's kind of a supernatural thing again, and you do swap between characters. I'm not saying as if like that's the only thing you care about. Like, well, if you don't swap between characters, I won't play this game. I know that's not what you like. But so you are basically like you're a rocket engineer. Your name is Elroy, and basically it's this mysterious past of your father has disappeared under suspicious circumstances a long time ago. And you discover, I don't want to give too much of the plot from what I played from the demo, but basically there's some hidden thing you discover in your house where you realize that your dad might still be alive, and you can go and find him, and you swap between
Oh.
him, and there's a journalist, like a reporter, Peggy, who's kind of wants to cover the story. So you kind of swap between them, and it's you just going on this adventure trying to find what's happened with your dad. But there's also this alien supernatural element because he's like this rocket engineer, and certain things happen from what I've
That
seen
sounds
anyway.
awesome.
But yeah, that one I played that at Gamescom, and I was like, oh, these guys really kind of get point and click adventure games that I could kind of see, similar like yourself. You could tell when someone's like played a lot of these games, they kind of get how they work. And so that one, and then this one was another one at Gamescom actually, and it was a bit off the wall, but I liked it. It's called Urban Myth Dissolution Center. Unusual title for a game. And it was a little bit like, it made me think a bit about yours, because you basically join this psychic center, and you've got to solve cases, but it's all to do with like the occult. And it's to do more with like Japanese style kind of relics and things like that. So it's to do with these myths that come about in cases, and you go to kind of myth bust
Oh.
and work out what's really going on. And it just had some really cool ideas. I didn't get to play too long on it, but I was like, oh, I kind of like this leaning into the sort of Japanese oddities style, because I don't think we've seen lots of that, at least in sort of adventure games anyway. But yeah. What do you think about
Yeah,
that?
agreed. Yeah, you got me excited about both of them. That's really cool. The
Yay!
the, the prior has blended sci-fi and paranormal. That
Yeah.
sounded really cool. And then this one's like on the occult side of things. Like, oh yeah, that's all right up my alley. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Are either of them pixel art? Do you know?
So
Or
Elroy
recall?
is less pixel art. It's more kind of like hand drawn. But Urban Mist Dissolution Center, yeah, and it's got that kind of it's got a little bit of the sort of interactive novel style, where where you've got like the characters, like who are talking, who are a little bit closer up. But then it's got that a sort of a pixely style. I will say it's a bit, there's some kind of like darkness and some maybe kind of like Japanese horror that you if you're into that kind of stuff, it definitely features. And I think it features around kind of like actual Japanese myths that exist. It's not like based on kind of stuff they've made up. It's like based around actual things, and it's them. You're part of this sort of psychic thing, and you're solving where these myths have come from and why, and that kind of thing. But yeah, and I think that one is
Oh,
out
that's
really soon
cool.
as well. Actually, I think that's out in February. So yeah,
That's reminding me of a game I can't think of the name of. Maybe you can, and then
Oh
if
gosh,
neither
I'll
of us can't,
try.
we'll just have
We'll
frustrated
go,
everyone. I
well,
know. I'm sorry.
someone else
I
can.
just put us both on the spot. Yeah, I don't know why am I like this. It was a '90s point and
Your
click
favorite.
game. I think it was like that narrows it down. Great
Yeah.
start.
Yeah,
Um,
there's none of those. Yeah.
but I think it was Nintendo only, and it was Japanese horror, and everybody really likes it.
Ooh.
Like it has a bit of a legacy.
It does. I mean, there was one which came out. I mean, there's one which came out recently called World of Horror, which was a bit like that as well. But I mean, that doesn't help because that's a completely different game that didn't come out in the 90s. But
Right.
Nintendo 90s Japanese, yeah, because I can see that being quite a. Hmm. There's something.
Somebody listening is yelling at the screen
Yeah,
right
it's
now,
like
so
it's
that's
obviously
that's.
this. There was something called Twilight Syndrome, but I don't know. I'm just.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Although that looks quite
I don't know
interesting as
why.
well, but I don't think that was the thing. That was actually in Japanese, I think. Um, listen, someone will know.
Yeah, exactly. They're frustratedly yelling it at the screen right now, and that's enough for us. That's satisfying enough. Sorry
um,
about that, guys.
what's coming up on the podcast then? What's like the latest episode, or what have you got planned as well?
I have to play Monkey Island 2 tonight, so that'll be the next
Oh,
episode.
don't tell me. If you have you played it before or
I have, I
okay, okay.
have, yeah, yeah. I would lose my membership card
Yeah, I
to
feel like
something, the network, if
yeah.
I.
Oh,
Yeah, I played
amazing
it one and
though.
two. Yeah, I'm excited to replay. It's been like 7 or 8 years, so I'm excited to
That's the
play it again,
thing.
and then
Yeah,
and then maybe we'll keep it going because I've not played. I'll sell myself out. I've not played Monkey Island 3. Well, I've not played any of the other Monkey Islands.
sure.
So,
Okay.
so yeah,
You
hopefully
can
we'll get
stop.
through 2, and then I
You
can
know,
start
you
playing
can
some new
skip
ones.
4 maybe, but yeah.
Right. Yes, I hear that a lot. Oh yeah, it's kind of hard to look at too, so I think I will. Yeah, that
Yeah.
that polygon. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shit. It's a weird one that, but yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, it was I've skipped Grim Fandango for so long because of that look, but I guess there is a remaster that I could do that would
Yeah, yeah.
smooth it all out. And have you
And
played Grim Fandango?
I have. I love it. It's one of my favorites. Yeah, it's
Okay,
very,
you
very
also
good.
love it.
And
Okay,
if you're a musician, you'll love the music in it. The soundtrack's
okay,
great, and it's just got a great style. So that one you can't skip. You've got to play that one.
okay, okay.
Have you actually, in terms of the ones that you have played for the podcast, which has been I suppose to explain the podcast, you play classic games. I'm getting ahead of myself here because I was going to go deep dive into the podcast, but so actually we should just very quickly explain what the podcast is about, and it's you guys chatting about it and your experiences. Sometimes with
Right.
guests as well.
Exactly. Yes. Anna and I is very like bantery.
Yeah.
I always tell people if you want like polished, organized, thoughtful, then you want Search's show. You want the Adventure Game Podcast. And if you want just bantery chaos, then you want our show. And why not both? Because Saoirse and I listen to each other, which I
Yeah,
still
yeah,
find adorable.
yeah.
Finding out that he listened to our show was yeah, it was an adorable little moment we both had. We're like we listen to each other, so we're so cute right now. But I regret saying that, but don't edit it. You're fine. Um,
Oh, I
yeah,
edit nothing. I'm very lazy.
see. Oh my god. Yeah, the amount of urination I hold in during our shows, I'm like, I'm not doing it, man. I'm the editor. We're gonna walk this out. But yeah, we used to do a lot of interviews. Like I guess we've kind of satisfied that because we've had like Al Lowe and Nicole's and the Williamses.
Yeah.
One thing, actually, I'll brag for a second. When we interviewed Ken Williams, he got Roberta to come out of the bottom of the boat, literally, and
Really
and do an interview with us. And at the time, it was the first interview that she had given in like
amazing.
20 years, except for the little Netflix thing she did. But it was
Oh
like
yeah.
the first podcast, and we got to tell her that like she had a legacy. Like she didn't know about Wadget Eye. She found it baffling that people like use pixel art still. Like she knew none of this. She was just like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah, there's like Facebook groups and fan pages like Sarah's. You're still a thing."
Yeah.
So that was like a crowning achievement. Actually, not long after that is when Rick, the third host, left, and he left for the reason of being like, I've said all I have to say.
Yeah, I've
I've
done.
lived, like I've done. Yeah, it's fair enough. But anyway, yeah, we used to do interviews. We still have the occasional indie dev on just to try to support the
Yeah.
community. A little bit less of that because well, frankly, because Rick was the organizational one, and Ann and I are the chaotic-y type. So we struggle a little bit with interviews, but we have a few coming up, and we just had a cool interview. And I'm being weird right now because I'm trying to think of the name that I'm forgetting. So I'll just I'll just kind of plow right through that. But anyway, yeah, we talk about mostly old games, sometimes new ones, but always adventure.
And the question I was going to ask before I got ahead of myself, I didn't explain the podcast properly, I was just going to say, like, what's been your favorite game
Right.
that you've rediscovered or that you've played for the podcast?
I really liked making Anna play games I love. That's been
Yeah.
fun because it's an excuse to. So I had her play Blade Runner and Thimbleweed Park.
Oh, yeah, both great.
And thank you. Yes, you like Blade Runner too? You played that?
Yes, yeah.
Oh,
Very, I mean,
cool,
like,
cool.
very technical for its time. Like, a
Yeah.
lot of the stuff in that, you're like, wow, like, how did they do all of this? But yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and just like the things they accounted for and like the 12
Yeah.
different endings and yeah, it's nuts. It's so
It's a
cool.
lot of detail
Um,
in that game. Yeah, for sure.
it is. Yeah, I've never said nuts before either like that. That's weird. That just like that's nuts. That's okay. Um, so yeah. Oh, and I've had her play Sanitarium once too. So that's like the most satisfying because then when the person loves the thing you love and you get
Yeah,
that
and you're like, yeah.
electric energy. Yeah, yeah, exactly. That always feels good. And then I it's a really good question. Like what like as far as like for myself having discovered I guess King's Quest 4. I
Oh,
really
fair.
love that
Yeah,
game. Yeah. And I didn't expect to because I didn't I grew up with all the Sierra games, but I guess I just have to assume my dad must have not liked the King's Quest series because I just don't remember them like at all.
yeah.
So I played it. I wasn't expecting to like it. I had played the first three before it, so I like really wasn't expecting to like it. No offense to the King's Quest fans. It's just if you don't have nostalgia for the first three,
Yeah. No,
it's a
I
big
think that's
ask.
fair. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it gets way better. Four,
Yeah,
five, and
that's the
six
thing.
definitely. Yeah, yeah, vast improvement. But yeah, King's Quest 4 was really cool because I didn't know. Nobody had spoiled for me, as I guess I'm about to do now for anybody who hasn't played it, but nobody had spoiled for me the night shift that it turns to
Yeah.
night
Yeah.
and like zombies and like this whole darker vibe and like I wasn't expecting it at all and I was sitting there like 36 years old like just gripped by a Sierra game like oh my god this is so cool so yeah that one.
Oh,
What about you?
wicked.
I'm about to bounce it back to you. Maybe this is the podcast hosting me, but I'm curious.
Yeah.
Like, have you had an old, have you had an old game surprise you that you hadn't played back
Well,
in the day?
like, for my sins, until like 2 years ago, I hadn't played Fate of Atlantis. So, and I was impressed by how well that holds up. Like, and also how many, because obviously you've got there's basically an entirely three different games that you can play in that like halfway through. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe like how different. I just thought, oh, there'll be like some different choices but it'll be basically the same game. But it's like a completely different experience. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And the fact and the fact they're so sneaky about it, like obviously even the
Yes.
puzzles are different each time. And yeah, I so that was one for me. I was like expecting it to be good, but maybe not quite as good as it was. Yeah, I love that one.
Oh,
Um,
love that answer. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
it's
I think it's my favorite LucasArts game too. And as a kid, I didn't know there was three paths because I always picked.
right.
I have a hard time being like the bad guy in a game. You know, like you can get the good
Yeah,
ending and the bad ending. I can never bring myself to be like
it's
the
hard.
jerk in. Yeah, I don't want to hurt their virtual feelings. You
Yeah.
know, so I would always have Sophia come with me, and like so I didn't know at
Ah,
all that there
yeah.
was like two other games in there to be had.
Yeah,
Yeah.
completely. And I suppose you wouldn't because, unless it's like word of mouth or, now it's just like,
Right.
oh, I'll
Right.
just look at this ending and it's so different. But, right. Well, talking of not holding in urination and all that kind of thing, I'm not going to let you. We're going to segue into. I'm not going to let you hold it in any longer, Paul. But I've really, I just thought that'd be a fun way to end the interview. You could like go and take a leak now. But yeah, no, genuinely, thank you so much for having a chat with me. If people want to find out more about Phantom Fellows, I'll drop all the links below this video. But where kind of is good? Where do you want people to check you out? Apart from obviously on Steam.
Yeah, thank you. Thephantomfellows.com.
Yeah.
It's also on GOG. If you do GOG, I would nudge you in that direction just because I mean it's GOG, and I'm
Yeah.
I'm so like stoked and honored to be on that store when I sell good for them. So yeah, check it out on GOG or it's your Steam or Fireflower, and podcast is cggpodcast.com.
Yes.
And yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.
Yay! Oh, good stuff. And I suppose I should ask you to finish it with: are you considering making more games, Paul, or are you like, I've made my game now, I'm really proud about that, or kind of what are the next steps for you?
Right, I am working on Phantom Fellows 2 right now.
Amazing, amazing,
Yeah.
exciting. So it
Yes,
hasn't
I'm
been a
excited.
bad
Just
experience for you then. You're willing to do it
right.
again.
Oddly, it feels like an abusive relationship. I just can't quit it. Yeah.
And we'll end it there. Good stuff. Oh, well, yeah. Good luck with that then. And
Thank
obviously,
you.
yeah. When that comes out, or you know, when that's coming out, let us know. And yeah, looking forward to it.
Thank you. Awesome.
Lovely stuff.
Thank you so much for having me
Bye.
on.
I always do this like little
Bye.
weird wave at the end. I'm like, why did I do that? Good stuff. Right, I've stopped. Right, thank you so much again to Paul for having a chat with me there about his game, The Phantom Fellows. And I'll put all the links and everything down below if you want to check that out and give it a go yourself. Now, I thought it was unfair to not speak to Paul Conway, aka the creator or co-creator of Dark Side Detective, because we were talking about him and his game. It felt a little bit weird to just leave it there and not also hear his side of the story, simply because we were discussing him. It felt a bit strange. So I did ask him, did he have anything he wanted to say about what we brought up with the similarities between Dark Side Detective? He did. He did actually come back with quite a lengthy, it's fair to say, statement. So in all fairness to him, here is what he had to say. He said, I've spoken to Paul Korman 3 times while he was working on the Phantom Fellows. I have been supportive of his project since he reached out to tell me he was working on a game with a similar art style. I respected that he wanted my blessing. Unfortunately, each time we have communicated, I have explicitly asked him to not directly copy or trace our art, and I provided him with numerous examples of art he clearly copied. Each time he promised to edit his game's sprites, our publisher also emailed him and explained he could not copy our game's art. Almost every screenshot I've seen of the Phantom Fellows has a layout or assets that I can trace back to the Dark Side Detective games. Many of his sprites and characters are clearly little more than colour edited copies of my work. I'm not doing a very good job of reading this, am I? In our age, where our creative livelihoods are under threat because plagiarism has become industrialized by generative AI, it's extremely disappointing to have another developer blatantly copy my work and dismiss the similarities as something only the untrained eye can see. Paul Corman had been asked not to copy my art, but chose to do so anyway. So there you go. A very different view from that. And I really genuinely bring that not to create any drama or awkwardness or anything like that, but just because I thought it was not entirely fair to not even go to Paul, considering we were talking about his work. I had no idea what he was going to reply with, but I felt once he had replied, it would be unfair to also not feature it on the same video, if at the end. I'm not either taking any sides of this. It's not something I really wish to be involved in, but I do hope it can be resolved. I hope something can be resolved from it, because I genuinely had a lovely time talking to Paul Corman about his work. He's a really nice guy, and I really respect the other Paul Conway, his work with Dark Side Detective. It's a fantastic game. So it's something that I hope can be resolved. But there you go. Those are the 2 sides. I felt I had to bring them both. Now, I would like to hear your view on this, not just on this specific example, but the game as well. Did you enjoy it? Did you have fun with it? What do you think about it? What's your review of it? And what else are you playing at the moment too? Do let me know. As always, you can catch me on twitch.tv/cressup as well. I'm on there playing adventure games most times of the week, so catch me on that as well. Thank you again to Paul for chatting to me, and see you soon.